This episode is brought to you by Bubs Naturals. Bubs Naturals is a tribute to former Navy SEAL Glenn Bub Darty, a national hero who laid down his life saving Americans in Benghazi, Libya. Glenn was a best friend to hundreds, people of all walks of life, from ski bums to outdoor enthusiasts, hippies, SEALs, fitness fanatics, and anyone and everyone in between. Glenn's call sign in the Navy was Bub. He stood for self-improvement and was always looking to help others, and that same DNA is woven into the Bubs brand. They donate 10% of all of their profits to charity in Glenn's honor, starting with the Glenn Darty Memorial Foundation. Now, we were lucky enough to have Bubs come in as a partner at our Power Monkey Camp 19 this spring for the first time, and they were an absolute hit with all the coaches, campers, and staff. We were lucky enough to have a variety of their products to test out, from their collagen protein to their brew coffee, as well as their hydrate or die electrolytes. Now, I was an absolute fan of the hydrate or die. We are on our feet at camp, constantly teaching, training, learning, playing for an entire week, and I needed something to be able to get me through those days, and the hydrate or die was what allowed me to do so, all the way to that last pickleball game at the end of each night. We are excited to have them back on board for our 20th camp come this fall in September, and if you would like to try out some of their product, please be sure to head over to bubsnaturals.com and use the code POWERMONKEY, all one word, all caps, for 20% off. Welcome to the Power Monkey Podcast, where we chat with the best in the world about what they do. I'm your host, Dave Durante, and this week we have a special episode for you. I am joined by three co-hosts, Mike Service, Jordan Samuel, and my beautiful wife, Sadie Durante, and we are talking about just having come off the incredible race of Hood to Coast, from Mountain Hood all the way to the Oregon coast, trekking 200 miles. 12 Power Monkeys came out here to race 36 legs. It was an incredible all-night adventure. Sadie, growing up in Oregon, it was just something that was close to her heart. Her dad having done it a ton of times. She did it last year for the first time and wanted more of the Power Monkey community to do it, so we gave it a try. It was quite an adventure. I'm not going to go too much into it in the intro. You'll hear all about it as we jump into the episode, but I have to tell you, it's going to be something that I want to do as many times as I can, with new teams, with more teams, with the same crew. It was a blast, and hopefully by the end of this, some of you listeners will want to do it as well. Enjoy.
Okay, let me start again. Mike,
All right.
I saw your post on the Instagram trying to channel your inner Sadie, which is obviously commendable and a very, very far reach. But the thing that struck me most was that you were in the airplane bathroom and you didn't have your shoes on. And I'm concerned for your well-being at this point.
All right, number one, that's false. The reason being is I did have my shoes on, and when I went to grab my foot to do the stretch, I realized that I would be holding my dirty shoe.
It was stuck to the ground?
Yeah, that would have probably been standing in urine. So I balanced on one foot, slipped my other shoe off, grabbed my clean sock, attempted to stretch. My other butt cheek cramped. I did fall into the door. Thankfully, it stayed secure. They probably thought I was having like an explosive moment in there or something. Slid my shoe back on, came outside, told Marie that I had just tried to do the Sadie stretch, and it was a semi-success. And there it goes.
What an athlete right there.
I am a mathlete for sure.
See what you got people doing now, Sadie?
Yeah, I didn't
taking the shoes off in the bathroom.
So
Sadie not only got me to run more in a 30-hour window than I have in the last 10 years, but she also got me to do mobility on an airplane all in one weekend.
For what it's worth, Mike,
congratulations.
Even though you didn't achieve Sadie status, I am impressed with what you were able to do, because I thought about it when I was flying to Portland for this race, and I walked in the bathroom and I'm like, there's no way. Yeah. Too small.
An impossibility. Well, we did make it to Portland, and we wanted to have another special episode, a lot of special episodes recently, to talk about this adventure, misadventure, however you want to call it, about
misadventure.
What Sadie got us to do.
Are we
too soon?
We're live.
Oh, we're live. Our listeners, you're all ready for this. This is the intro. All right.
We all made it back home safely to our respective locations, Germany, East Coast, West Coast, wherever we're at. But it's still pretty fresh in our minds as to how it all went. And so we wanted to retell a little bit about what this crazy ass adventure that we all took part in, 12 of us as part of the Power Monkey team, um, did over the weekend. Sadie, why don't you just give a rundown of what Hood to Coast is as a race?
Yeah, so Hood to Coast is a relay race. It's considered the mother of all relays. It starts at Mount Hood and it ends at the Oregon coast. It goes all along downtown Portland, through the woods. It goes all through the night. And it's the way that it's broken down is by teams of 8 to 12 people. We did it in 12 and in 2 different vans. So we had 6 people in each van, just tag teaming, relaying, and alternating all the way, starting at Mount Hood. We do various exchanges along the way. And you basically don't sleep. You just keep powering through and getting all the way to the coast.
Yeah. So overall, 200 miles that we cover as the 12 of us. Each leg is somewhere between basically 4 and 8 miles, kind of different terrain, Sadie mentioned throughout the night. We started, it was kind of a strange start to that morning, right? Like it had been really hot. And then the morning that we started, we had like an early AM. You guys were in van 1, Jordan, Mike, with the rest of the crew. Gary and Beth coming from Jersey, Andrew coming from Jersey, and then the last in your van was Marie, Mike's wife, Marie, also coming from Germany. So that was your 6, and you had an early start time, and Mike was going to be number 1, starting us out at the top of the mountain. And that night, we had a crazy ass thunder and lightning storm, like nuts.
Both of us waking up ominously to the thunder and lightning, not even knowing that happened.
Yeah, it was because it like never does that out here. It's extremely rare. In fact, the last time that I remember thunder and lightning is the first day we moved into the house here 5 years ago, and it hasn't since. So it was like a crazy ass start to the morning, and it cooled everything down a ton.
Yeah, it was even
for that first run
and lightning on the drive to the mountain, to the start. Like it was still going. We were wondering what the heck was going on.
Well, it only made it terrifying because there was notices that at Mount Hood you needed to evacuate because of the fires that can like immediately break out once there's lightning.
Well, that's not surprising because it was so windy up there. If there was even a single flame anywhere, it would spread instantly. It was cold on top of that mountain, and largely due to the wind.
Yeah, that was well, I would like to say that I guess from my newly acquired Greek heritage, from living on Crete, I just felt like it was a good omen from the mountain gods of Mount Hood that they were, excited that I was going to go up there and try to run. But to Jordan's point, the wind was insane on the mountain. Like I wasn't expecting that, so that was already a surprise for me.
But Mike, you got to start it off hot. I don't know if anybody saw the video of Mike coming out. There was like 6
sprint the first 40 meters, man. You got to get out.
Yeah.
6 people. Mike was doing squats at the top of the mountain and just hauled ass for the first 40 meters and then settled into his nice 15-minute per mile pace
and then
after
settled
that.
into the pace and FaceTimed us while we were driving down the mountain. Is he literally on the phone already?
I took this run very serious. I started training for it, doing some runs.
Rolled his ankle 15 times leading up to the race.
Hurt my ankle quite a bit, which made me not be able to train for it. But I wanted to bring energy to that first leg, and it was it was morning. My team was excited, anxious, and a little sleepy. So I wanted to show that the weightlifter guy had some energy. So I did some impromptu dancing similar to what we did at camp when we wore our after sauna
we'll have to repost
tunics
as well.
Yeah, Nomadic. We got to give a shout out to Nomadic for sending those out to us. Yeah,
that brought out my dance vibes, and then it was more comical because with Jordan, was it you or Andrew? You guys said that like people in the bathroom before the race started. So I had just gotten some sweet new shoes from the Nike store because Dave and Sadie took us to the Nike store. So I had professional looking running shoes. I have quad muscles from being a squatter, and I was wearing shorter shorts. So my legs looked like maybe they could run, as did my shoes. And then Marie gave me like a really cool braid. So I looked the part completely. And somebody in the bathroom was like, "Oh, did you see that guy out there? I think he's a beast at running." So they told me, and I didn't want to let anybody down, at least for the start where there was a camera. So this was why I really took off at the gun and definitely crushed the first 50 to 80 meters. Like I think I set a hood to coast record there, and then was slowly passed by most everybody as we meandered our way down the hill.
When we passed Mike in the van, we pulled the windows down and yelled, "Yay, Mike!" whatever, and he's running next to this lady, and he goes, he cheers us back and goes, "Hey!" and he yells, "I made a friend." He was no more than 200 meters down the mountain, and he had already made a friend with somebody that he was running alongside of. I mean, this is
Mike is Buddy the Elf, even at the top of the mountain.
Yeah, shout out to Kim. Kim was crushing it. She just found out about the race 4 months earlier. Her and her family, when she was little, had moved to Spokane from Vietnam. We got a whole life story within like 200 meters of our run, to which I was proud of myself because she actually decided to walk after that. I think it was just to get away from me talking.
You know what, Mike? I made a friend as well on the route, and I put that on my van. So I made a friend, marked that on.
Instead of this aggressive.
You know what that tells me? That you guys aren't taking the race seriously.
No,
I didn't want to say it, Dave, but I'm glad you did.
My
goodness, making friends. We're there to race, people.
Well, this woman who was my friend carried me through it because my first leg was brutal.
Yeah, because the temperature went from 50 at the top of the mountain to 95 when we were in the middle of the day for our legs.
My first leg was out in Sandy, and the leg was manageable. It was like 5 miles, and it was relatively flat, but it was no shade at all, like in the dead heat. And I was so hot. Like we had been like out in the heat all day, and I just started breaking down, and I didn't want to text the group. So of course I like privately messaged Dave, like, I'm dying, like death emoji, like all the skulls. And I was like, talk to me. Cause I was like, I can hear you through my headphone. Just like, keep talking to me. And so he starts to like give me all the pep talks, and also was like, are you okay? Are you gonna make it?
Because you didn't have any water with you either, so she ended up having like.
But you did have your bubs, right?
Yeah. Can you talk to that, Sadie? What did you have there?
Yeah, I was starting to get like the chills a little bit. Like I looked down, I had like goosebumps, and I was like, what is going on? Like, that's not a good sign. I think I was like, my body temperature was getting all weird, and I was like hallucinating. But,
great start.
But then I made my friend Mike, and we carried each other through it. We both we just were like, we can do this. We can do hard things. We've got this. Let's go. So we carried it through together, and that was my leg 1.
So, but if I remember correctly, when I saw you at the exchange and you looked every bit as what you just described, I was like, oh my gosh, Sadie, are you okay? And I think what you told me, correct me if I'm wrong, was that you had your water bottle with you, but you had it filled with just Bubs powder and no water. Is that correct?
I messed up the proportions. So like the Bubs was giving me life.
More like a sludge.
But I underdid it on the water, and so it was a good lesson. I was like, okay. gotta fix that for the next one.
The Bubs was a lifesaver throughout the weekend, but just not at that particular moment.
Yeah, I will say our van crushed the Bubs. And I was not forced to say this, but I think we each had Bubs like on tap the whole entire ride.
It was a lifesaver.
Yeah. And Marie and I both admitted that when using the bathroom, we noticed that we were more hydrated than probably any other time throughout the year. So we were very proud of that. Yeah.
Good to know.
Yep.
All right, a couple of questions so we can go through the rest of the race. Because after everyone's legs are kind of different, especially from van to van in terms of terrain and temperature. Like we ended up doing throughout the night, you guys ended up doing the morning. And so everyone kind of has a little bit of a different take as to how the experience is according to where they are along the run. But I wanted to get everybody's favorite leg that they had. Like what made it special for you? What was cool about it? Of your 3, what was your favorite? Jordan, start with you.
I mean, the last leg for me was the coolest, not because it was the coolest, but because it was the hardest, and I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. I had something going on in the back of my left knee, and I was like, and I knew that the whole thing was like 3 miles straight up to the top of this mountain, and then essentially 3 miles down, which a lot of times people are like, oh, downhill's great. Not for me. That just hurts my knees even more. So I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. And I got all the way to the top and just kept on, grinding. And at the top, because it was
this is where you crested, right?
That's where I crested. Yeah. When I got to the top, all these cars that were, the vans for everybody, they had stopped because everybody would get out and they'd make like fake toilet paper finish lines for people to run through because it's an accomplishment to get to the top. And I was not expecting that. And I was dying by the time I got up there, and I was like, what is going on? And then all these people cheering. And that was just really, really cool, for one, to have that, but also to prove to myself that I was able to do something that I honestly was questioning heavily, because the knee, my stomach was bothering me. I had been to the honey pot like a few times before that, or whatever that porta potties are called over there. So for me, that was like a triumphant moment where I felt like I really accomplished something and proved something to myself. So
well, you are our best runner. We had given you leg number one, like difficulty number one, to be able to get through it. So it was no joke for you to be able to do some of those legs. Not only were they long, but the terrain was a little bit rough. So thank you for pushing through and being the trooper that you are, even with stomach troubles, which seemed like a lot of people had throughout the weekend. Yeah. Obviously, food is tough. You have to bring a lot of snacks with you. You're in the freaking van for 30 hours. We were kind of lucky because we were able to come back to the house, both of our vans, and take a shower and get in Normatec and use a Hypervolt and those kind of things. And we were able to recover a little bit. But for the vans that are kind of just sleeping in sleeping bags the entire time, we had an unfortunate incident on the second leg interaction, which we can talk about. But let's go through the rest of everyone's favorite leg first. Mike, what about you?
Yeah, before we go to my most shameful moment, let's focus on my favorite leg. To be honest, the first leg was just crazy cool because it was at the top of the mountain, so it was like interesting to see and fun. But I think my favorite leg was actually the nighttime leg. It's so cool to run through the night and have the spotlight on and just kind of be in your own world. So yeah, I really like that, and kind of running that leg, like I didn't have any earbuds in or anything, so it was just fun to listen to the sounds at night, and pass people, and like I took a note from Marie. She said that she was getting energy every time she would pass somebody by like giving them a fist bump, and one guy actually thought she was trying to punch him, and he like leaned really hard away. And then he realized that it was like a positive thing, and it was like a joke the next times they saw each other. But the first leg I didn't do that, and then the nighttime leg, every person I passed, I was like, hey, great job, keep it up, and it was like kind of fun. Just the night leg, definitely my favorite one.
What about you, Sadie?
Well, I agree. The night one was great because it was just cool, and there is something like facing all the fears of running into the woods in the pitch black that's like kind of invigorating. I would say the last one though, because you decided to do it with me.
Do you think that was the best one?
Well, it was the most memorable. I mean, I definitely had a moment where I broke down and I was like, I can't do this. It was the last one. We hadn't slept. I had a headache from the heat stroke situation, and
it was a little over 7 miles, your last one.
7 miles like uphill, and I had like this weird backache from sitting in the van, and but like, so just like getting caught up in all the things in my head, like just why I couldn't, and then just finding the courage to like put in my earbuds and like pick it up. And I was channeling something he had said, just like find a song and just that speaks to you and just like let it give you life and just like zone out and go. So I found a song, like there was no internet, so it was like one song downloaded, some like Italian techno song that was just like had a driving beat, and I just like started to haul ass, and and suddenly
I mean that
up some speed.
That was
at the very end.
That was 7 miles, and I had just come off of mine that was just under 8. And so I was in good shape after my last leg, and then I did a fourth leg to help Sadie out, and it ended up accumulating to basically like 26 miles total, which I was like, okay, I had made up my mind to like, okay, I'm gonna help Sadie get through this last leg, so I'm gonna go run. That was rough. Like I could barely keep my feet moving in front of me. I got I looked up and is known as runner's toe, which I have many runner's toes right now, not just one. I have 5 runner's toes, which is, I think, full house is what they call it. They're like black toenails. My toenails are like falling off because of all the running. Maybe my shoes are too small, or I don't know. But that last 7 miles, I was just chugging along. I was like, Sadie, whatever pace you're gonna run at, I'm gonna just stay with you. So I was like, okay. And we were just like, I had more blackberries in that
we did
stretch
stop a lot for blackberries.
Then that's part of the run, I guess, when you're running with Sadie, is just every 50 meters stopping to eat a blackberry along the run. So I learned that.
That's amazing.
Part of running Sadie's running pattern.
I hadn't eaten anything. I was so hungry. It was like 2 p.m. I was like, oh,
ooh, blackberry. Ooh, blackberry. All right, it's fine. So that's an Oregon special. Oregon roadside delicacy. Blackberries are everywhere. So I was just struggling. And then Sadie was really having a hard time. And so I just shut my mouth and I was just like there to support. And then for the last like mile and a half, Sadie did exactly that. She put her earbuds back in and she just like took off and I couldn't keep up with her. And I was just like running in mud. And I've never seen her run that fast before. I think she ran that last mile and a half at like 8-minute pace, which is crazy fast for her. And yeah, she finished up super strong. I was really proud to see her finish the finish line. And then me just kind of collapsed 2 minutes later behind her.
I couldn't keep up. I had to make up for some of the walking. So I had to like average out that pace, but I couldn't give up. I had to like power through. So it was important for me not to end on that note of like complaining, whining. I was just like, nope, get it together. Let's go.
Yeah, that's an interesting point I wanted to ask you guys. And Sadie, you kind of already answered this a little bit before when you mentioned the thing with the song from Darnell, but what were you like, what techniques or things were you guys using and telling yourselves in your head? What sort of self-talk, like what were you doing in order to keep yourself going during these tough legs at night with no food and no sleep and not just quit? Like, does anybody have a technique that they found worked really well for them?
I do something stupid that I don't think is really helpful. I count my steps.
Why is that?
I do that when I row really long. I just count my strokes because that's a good one.
It just keeps me, it keeps my breathing pattern intact, but I count my steps basically to like 100 and then I start over again. And it just like gets my mind off of the actual distance that I'm going. So I just keep this pattern of counting. And for me, it's just a rhythm that allows me to kind of not focus on, the end, just like one step in front of the other.
Do you wear earbuds, Dave?
I do. I put a podcast on for just about all of them. I was listening to one of Huberman's podcasts, and I normally love his podcast, but it was one of the more boring ones, and I was like not paying attention to it. But I normally love his stuff, and this one was just like, so I actually was like tuning it out the entire time, and I was just trying to focus on what was going on. But my counting is what I really focused on, especially on the last run. My third one, not the fourth one I did with Sadie, but my third one, my last actual leg, was my favorite as well. It was just gorgeous. The temp had come down. It was still a beautiful day. It was the run right before we got to the actual coast. So you're still in, all these crazy trees and beautiful landscapes. It was awesome. It was very hilly, so up and down. It wasn't very flat. But it was just under 8 miles. And I was really, 8 miles for me is a rather long distance being a gymnast. I'm not used to running at all. But I finished, I think I did like in a little over 8:20, 8:30 pace. And for that stretch, and I felt great. And I was really happy with how that one ended. So for me, the third leg was the one I remember the most, aside from painful leg 4.
Yeah, he felt great, and then he did leg 4.
Yeah.
And then when we saw you at the end of that, you looked grumpy pants. Let me tell you, like yeah.
I was in really bad shape. I could barely walk. In fact, somebody thought I was dying.
Oh my God, this is a great story.
Somebody thought I was dying on the beach when you get to the coast. They have like bands playing and the finish line, everybody's getting medals and, everybody's having beers and hanging out. And my legs were destroyed. Like not only my toes were black, but my quads were just destroyed. Like I could barely stand up. And so like, I was just like, I need to lay down. And so Sadie's like, okay, I'll go get you some food. And like, I had my sunglasses like hanging out of the front of my shirt. And so as I'm like lowering myself down to the ground, I hold onto my sunglasses. They don't fall into the sand. And it looks like I'm like grabbing my chest as I like lower. And these guys run over and they're like, he needs help. do you need help? I was like, no, I'm okay. I'm just lowering myself very slowly and gingerly to the ground. I thought I was dying. I was like, no, I'm okay. Trust me. They're like, oh my God, like we don't know what we would have done. Like it was like thousands of people around, but these guys were extremely concerned. Sadie saw this and just turned around and walked the other direction.
I saw the whole thing. I was like so embarrassed. Like, oh my God, they think he's dying.
Yeah. So that's how my weekend ended.
So bad.
Yeah. Not funny. Not funny. So yeah, but you asked the question. I was the only one that answered. Any other tool or method that people use to get through?
For me, it's music. I connect so much for music to I mean, that's how I was training. That's how I think as a dancer, it's just like how you just put on music, sound. It's just like you just don't think about anything and just go. So that's for me. I think what was hard about not having music was that I was all of a sudden like caught up in all of the thoughts that I was having, that as soon as I put that on, I could just like not think about anything and just head down, go.
Well, you Mike.
I mean, you guys make fun of me and tell me I'm a little bit like Buddy the Elf, but yeah, I don't no earbuds
smile as much as possible.
No earbuds or anything. I just kind of smile, and then if I get a little like the second leg for me was the one that I got to experience the 95-degree heat, and about 2 miles in, it like smacked me right across the side of the face. I was like, whoa. But then I just kind of remembered, Dave says it a lot too whenever we do stuff as a group, like I'm able to do this and I get to do this, like I chose to do this and how lucky am I, like that. It's kind of like the talk gratitude to yourself, and like, you know, there's lots of people, million other places all over the world that would pay everything they have to be able to be running around with other people for fun. So in that sense, it was like make light of my temporary first world misery that I was putting myself through. So that was pretty helpful. And then of course, just talk, like, you know, making my friends like Kim, talking to people.
You, Jordan?
Well, you know, if I was back home or training in the gym, I'm kind of like Sadie, where I like to have music on because I extract a lot of drive from that. But when I run, even here, like outdoors, I'll never wear headphones or anything like that because I want to hear my feet. I want to hear my breath. I want to hear whatever's going on around me. So I try to be really present when I'm running. And I had that moment on leg 2 where I was immediately thinking about what am I going to do on leg 3? And I was like, no, just focus on what I'm doing right now. And that, you know, I bring down even further, just like listening to the rhythm of my breath, listening to the sounds of my feet. And I just use that to kind of zone out, just some simple, kind of like your point, Dave, some simple rhythm thing to focus on. And then the only other thing that I was doing, and it kind of falls into the same category as like a rhythm, just something to just repetitiously kind of focus on. We have these things on this race called roadkills that Sadie told us about. Every time you pass somebody, that's considered a roadkill. So all I would do is, if I were to say anything to myself in my head, I would just repeat the number of roadkills that I currently had, just ad nauseum, just 12, 12, 12, 12. And then I would see somebody in front and I would just kind of slowly chip away at them. And that was the next driving factor, is just catch this person, 12, 12, 12. And then I'd pass that person. Now it's 13, 13, 13, and try to match that up with my breath and my feet hitting the ground and kind of zone out.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. All right. I want to talk about the disaster that was exchange number 2. So some context here. It's no one's fault because
that's a kind way to put it, but go ahead.
It's no one's fault because we've never done this before, and there's no cell reception for a majority of this portion of the race, or very, very limited cell reception. So if you have particular carry, you're not going to get any. So you're kind of flying blind for a big chunk of the middle part of the race. And so when we do the major exchanges, so like after a van does their 6 runners, there's a major exchange to the next van. And one of the major exchanges was happening in the middle of the night. And it was going to go from the end of Beth's run to the start of OSHA's run. Or no, it was the end of BJ to Mike. And BJ was the end of our van, and Mike was the start of the next exchange. And this exchange was enormous. It was an enormous, like, Woodstock like parking lot. It was just an open field. And what happens halfway through the race too, once you hit downtown Portland, there's an additional race that starts. So you have Hood to Coast that starts from the Mount Hood all the way to Coast. And then there's Portland to Coast. So you get this influx of like more people that come from the Portland stop. So there were so many fucking people at this one. And that's the one big critique I have of this race. I think they let too many people enter the race.
Agreed.
It's an awesome race. It's beautiful. It's really well run, all things considered, how much logistics are put into place for 200 miles worth of stops. But there's just too many people in terms of like every time you get to a stop, there's like long lines of cars. You can barely get to the next stop where the runner is getting to be able to do an exchange. Sometimes we'd have to pull over on the side of the road like a mile before the stop to let the person out to get to the stop so we can exchange. Another part of the story. Anyway, this place is enormous and we're exhausted. The exchange is about to happen at like 4 in the morning.
3:30.
It was like
3:30. It was supposed to be a 3:30 exchange. 3:30 exchange. We get there and Mike and Van One had been staying at a friend's house and we're like, we're driving in now. And BJ finished, kicked ass on his run, and me and Osh and Sadie and BJ were waiting at that stop. And where were you guys?
So yeah, this timing wise, yeah, you guys had started. Yeah, you guys had started your run, and for all the listeners, you're also very much like estimating when everybody's going to finish, especially when there's no cell service, because you can't get like a live update. So we had sort of estimated that BJ would finish between 3:30 and 4 a.m. So our goal was to get to the spot, at the latest 3:30, because we figured we would have some time. And we left on time, yours truly as the driver. And everybody asked me if I knew where I was going, to which I answered yes, because I had checked the night before and was very confident that I was going to the right leg. And yeah, we got stuck in some traffic. We got stuck in a lot of traffic at one leg, which I thought was maybe a little bit strange because I knew we still had another leg to go to. And we went to the leg that was supposed to be, in my mind, where we were, and couldn't find Dave or BJ or anybody there. And then Jordan looked in the packet again and told me that he was pretty certain we were at the wrong leg. And at that time, it was probably like 3:50 or so, almost 4. And then we had gotten a random like call that didn't really go through from Nicole, but Jordan could sort of hear her, sort of not hear her. And all of this, fast forwarding to, we had to pack back up into our van, turn around, go back to the next stop, which was probably took us another 15 minutes or so just to get there.
Can we just mention that drive back, because that drive was stressful.
Treacherous.
I was doing that drive because Mike was going to get out. And so you've got on the other side of the road, you've got cars coming because their van's going to the next station that we were at, which we were not supposed to be at. And then on the side that we were driving on,
pitch black
night, pitch black, you've got runners, and these runners don't give a shit about running on the side of the road. They're literally, many of them are dead center in the middle of the road because it's nighttime and the edge of the road becomes difficult because there's a slope to it and all these things. And I'm trying not to kill people. I'm tired. It's dark. There's cars on both sides. There are people. And I'm like, trying not to drive too slow, but also not drive too fast. And we were stressed and all these things. So that was a little stressful. I gotta be honest.
That was there. And then we finally got to the location we were supposed to get to. They all went to park the van. I jumped out. My only thought was, I hope that Dave's not the one who's here. Because even though we're not taking this as overly competitive, I have just lost our team roughly an hour on our exchange from going to the wrong place and now just walking back and forth through a sea of like 1,000 people, hoping that I see one of my 6 teammates. I'm like, please be BJ, please be Osh, like somebody that'll probably like smile and laugh. And then in their hooded tunic, a face of pure joy, I see Dave, and he goes, Mike. And then he just pointed the baton little wrap thing for my wrist and looked all as tired as he said he was after having, completed the run, and then basically waited there for an hour for me to show up. But that was my fastest paced run, Dave. I would like to say that. That was by far the fastest run I had, and it was inspired by trying to make up a few of the minutes.
On a scale of 1 to Lewis Black, how pissed were you when you saw Mike an hour late?
Oh, I was infuriated. I was just, and that was the start of the.
That wasn't even
that wasn't even the end of it.
He was better than I was. I was the one. He was holding it together because I was the one that was like, "Oh no, we're going home. We're done here."
Because we were all there. Me, BJ, Osh, and Sadie. Because Nicole was with us, and then Darnell was sleeping in the car.
Darnell sleeps anywhere, by the way. Can we just comment on that?
Champion.
Like, he'll fall asleep on a doorknob.
We were all up because
Darnell was in the car sleeping.
No, he was. There was a moment we were all up trying to problem solve this.
No.
We don't need to draw the story out any longer. By the way.
So at one point, I sent Sadie and Nicole back to the car, and then me, BJ, and Osh were there. And then finally, I was like, "You guys need to go to sleep. Like, I'll wait for Mike. You guys need to go back and sleep." So I sent BJ. BJ had just come off his run and was waiting, just standing there for an hour. So I sent them back, and they walked back, and finally Mike came. And so I started walking back to the car, and I was like, "Oh, thank God! Like, I can at least just sit down in the car." No van. Van's not there. No van. And this place is enormous. So like to go from where we were standing to where the van we had parked was like a mile. So we walked like a mile.
Done the mile.
Relax. Let me finish. Let me finish.
It'd be helpful if I brought the van closer.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, because we know where that is with no cell phone service. So Sadie just took the van from the spot, not knowing where any of us were. I was lucky enough to find BJ and Osh in the middle of this pitch black. We were just calling, "Dave, is that you? Oh my God, is it you?" And we found each other, and we just started walking around like, what are we going to do? We have no car. We have no cell reception. And so we walked that leg 3 more times, back to the start line, back to the car, back to the start line, just back and forth, the 3 of us. And we had no car. And then I was just screaming in the parking lot, "Sadie! Sadie!" And finally, from the other side of the parking, I hear, Dave is Dave. Another hour later, I found Sadie just because I was screaming as she and Nicole were driving around the parking lot. We finally get back in the car, and Sadie is a disaster. Like, "I'm done with this thing. Let's go back to Portland." I was like, and then
he had to pick it up.
I was like, "Okay, go to sleep." And we just drove to the next major exchange, which took us 2 hours.
Dave did. He didn't nap. He just kept powering through.
I just drove to the next major exchange, which took 2 hours to get there. And by the time we got there, it was 8 in the morning or 7 in the morning. And as soon as we got there, Beth was finishing her leg as the last of your van and exchanged to Osh, and then we got in the van and went.
Can I just say, first of all, I hadn't heard that story yet, and as upset as I'm sure I would have been if I were in your shoes, it's kind of funny to hear now, but it does make, and I'm not taking joy out of this at all, but it does make me feel a little bit better that you guys are human, because the perception that Van 1 had filled with a bunch of East Coasters and Jersey people who are just like constantly complaining and making fun of each other the whole time.
Well, you guys were a lot of complainers. Let's get that.
Sure. But all we could think was like, man, that Van 2, they're just the most positive people, and their experience is probably completely different than ours. So to hear this story just feels a little bit better.
I was actually the only one that fell apart. And honestly, it's Dave and I have like this weird unwritten rule when traveling in life where only one of us is allowed to fall apart at a time. And then when the person's worse off, the other person just has to like kick it into gear and like rally. Like, this is how we travel, how we get through life. It's just like, if one person's visibly falling apart, the other person picks it up and just like becomes the captain of the situation and like powers through. So that's what was happening. I was the one that was the worst off, and Dave just like, just sleep, just nap, just sleep in the van. And everyone in our van 2 energy was amazing, by the way. It was Osha's birthday, and it felt like the longest birthday ever. Like, the day it didn't end because we were just running through the night. So at every exchange, I would try to rally everyone to sing her happy birthday. She was hilarious in the van as we were driving by people, just like screaming for everyone. And yeah, it was van 2. We had, for the most part, really great morale, like playing music the whole time. We had our disco ball. We had a lot of fun in there.
Yeah. There's that one moment of
a moment of weakness.
But we may, yeah. I think it was just, it's part of the deal. And that's I mean, we can finish up pretty soon here because I don't know how much more people want to hear about this race. But I will say that, you know, I told you guys at the end because I think there was some tension between everybody with the exchange and just the frustration that come along with doing something hard. And it was physically hard. Yes, I think we were all prepared for doing something physically challenging. 200-mile run between 12 people, non-runners. It was going to be physically hard. What we didn't always anticipate is the mental challenge and the emotional challenge that comes along with that. And we have to realize that when we're doing something of this scale, that it's going to be challenging in a variety of ways. And that was one of the things I learned. And maybe that's what we can finish up with here is something that we maybe learned about ourselves. Mm-hmm. I learned that I really enjoy these types of challenges. I really enjoy them. I enjoy being put in situations that, you know, I don't sleep, and it forces me to see whether or not I can overcome not sleeping and still push myself through. I was loving the runs. Like I love even the ones where my toes were black. I was like, this is awesome. Like at the end of the race, like people were like, I don't think we're going to ever do that again. I would 100% sign up today to do it again. 100%. I'm ready to go to do it again. Do I need to heal up? Sure. You know, do I know there's going to be more shitty parts? Absolutely. But I really enjoy like the challenges that come along with, maybe it's physical challenges and then, you know, all the other stuff comes along with it, but I enjoy these things. So I had a great time with it. So thank you, Sadie, for forcing us all to do this.
You're welcome.
Anything else anyone else learned about themselves?
I would say maybe not for personally, but speaking on behalf of some of the teammates, which was awesome to see, was that the relative difficulty that it was assigned each leg was almost not the hardest factor. Like, honestly, I think the hardest person who had it was maybe even BJ, of like being the anchor and waiting for hours until you even started. And just like the whole mental component of like sitting around and waiting, like those sorts of things became the hardest part. And I was very proud of Nicole had a run that I had done last year. That was you go from like this exchange where there's this party happening and everyone's loud and there's music, and then you just turn this corner when you start and you're alone in the dark in the woods running up a hill, and it starts off with 2 miles of like just this trail in the woods in the pitch black, and you're absolutely by yourself, and it's terrifying. And she PR'd her time so fast.
Yeah, she crushed it. We were waiting for her at that exchange, and we were like, "Now she'll be here in like 15 minutes." And we were on the car. I even made Sadie come back. I was like, "It's gonna be a while." She was 12 minutes ahead of schedule on that one, and it was because she was so scared. And it was pitch black, but she said she saw something called like Knife Creek, and she thought someone was coming out of the creek to come and chase her. So she just hauled ass, and she ended up making up 12 minutes on that leg. It was over 6 miles. Nicole gets a shout out for kicking ass on her second leg.
I was so proud of her.
Yeah, it was amazing. Knife Creek.
That's what a little adrenaline will do to you.
What about you guys?
Amazing. Jordan?
I mean, kind of to your point, Dave, I like the physical challenge of things, but also to your point, in the middle of it, I was one of the people that said, I'm not fucking doing this next year. And so what I learned was that, one, my technique of like just focus on what you're doing right now, just be present in what you're doing right now is great, but it's not everything. Because if I just focused on what was going on right now, I was miserable in some ways, and that's what led me to say I'm not doing this again. But then when we were done and I looked back at what we did as a group and the time we spent together and the moments we had together, I fucking loved it. I love that part of it too. And so I think that being present in the moment is important, but also having a big picture view of what you're doing is also valuable and important too. So that was the takeaway for me.
Awesome. Michael?
I mean, I learned that my suspicions were true. I'm friends with a bunch of crazy people. I'm also married to one. So like Marie runs all the time. So I thought that she was just going to be like so into it. And she was the most nervous person leading up to this whole entire thing. She went on like every blog about Hood to Coast to figure out what it was going to be like. I thought she was going to have an anxiety attack on our way to like Portland. And then the entire run, it was like the best time of her life. She was like excited. She was trying to trade. She was trying to trade legs with people that had longer runs because she wanted to run longer. Like
she must have asked me 4 times on my last, like, are you sure? You sure you don't want me to do your? I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
It was like she was, she had so much fun. So she had like a complete swap. And then it was funny because then like probably the rest of us were all like pretty excited to do it. And then like Jordan said, like mid-race, everybody's like, I don't want to do this again next year. And then by the end of the race, everybody's like already planning next year. So it's like just my suspicions that we are a functional bipolar group of fitness enthusiasts and love being with our Power Monkey family. So it just reinforced that I'm so thankful and happy to be celebrating 10 years with this very, very, very unique family that we've all formed. So that was my learning experience.
Thank you, Mike. I know Sadie, you go ahead.
I have one more question for you guys. When will you do your next run?
I did already.
How long
Marie did hers today as well.
I did a 3-mile run yesterday.
Okay. That's aggressive.
Black toes and all.
Run yet?
I did a 20-minute bike session yesterday. Okay. I counted that as something cardio-esque. And I guess tomorrow would be a nice day for me to run. And I will continue doing some type of weekly run so that, my feet don't feel like they're going to fall off next year.
Jordan, you did one like the day after, right?
No, I did one Tuesday. And then I'm planning on doing one today after we're done here.
Nice. Sadie, you ran to the bus stop.
I ran to the bus stop. I'm into it though. I feel like I've acquired a new thing that we do now.
It is nice.
I will say that like I didn't think that I thought the running was gonna beat me up training for this race, but I feel like my health is better right now because it's almost like a ton of zone 2 and zone 3 training, which I don't normally do. Everything I do is high intensity. So I feel like I'm performing better in other workouts now, and my heart rate variability is higher and all these good things. So I think there's a lot of health benefits to what we did too.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Sadie is so glad to hear all of this because she thought that she lost 11 friends and family members after forcing everyone to do this race.
Sadie, we have a whole like German contingency that wants to join in their own van next year. Like Marie's brother-in-law wants to do it. Marie's signing up for like a 30-mile run in Germany next spring. Like,
wow.
Wait, they measure things in miles over there?
No, I just converted it for our listeners. But
so that is the final question from me is who wants to do a marathon next?
No, I want to do the Hood to Coast again. The Hood to Coast is a team, and that's fun.
Yeah.
That is fun. And Nicole presented the idea of doing this Oahu race. It's a 135-mile 5-person team, swim, bike, ruck, run.
I'll die. I can't swim.
You don't have to. You pick one of them. I think you do one of the legs.
And paddleboard is the 5th.
And paddleboard, yes. Somebody does a run, somebody does a ruck, somebody does a swim, somebody does. So that's one that we could potentially consider to do as a team again. But I don't know. Like I did end up doing 26 miles over the course of that 30 hours, and 18 of it felt great. Last 7 miles, which is I guess what a lot of people say. Runners say you hit that 18-mile, 20-mile mark, and it's death from that point. I never thought I would ever have any interest in doing a marathon, but I wouldn't say absolutely out of the question. Like there's a possibility.
We could raise money for the Power Monkey Camp Educational Fund in the process as runners.
That's true. If we can get more scholarship kids out to camp and make it a charitable endeavor, I'm up for it.
Let's do it.
All right. Sadie, thank you again. Hope you guys enjoyed Oregon. Beautiful Hood to Portland to Coast. And hopefully some of you guys will be interested in doing it with us next year.
Thank you, Sadie.
Later, guys.
Bye, guys.
See ya.